Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the shop today and the Corvette is still gone. It's at the body shop. You guys are well aware of that project with the whole bumper and all that stuff. So we'll have some updates for that when that car is done. But for right now, we've got a little bit of a seat project in front of us. And you guys might be wondering, well, what are you doing to the seats now? Well, kind of as promised earlier, we actually will be wiring up the air conditioner or the seat ventilation, whatever you want to call it. It's not really an air conditioner, it's mostly a computer fan that's inside the seat on the top and the bottom, and just to give you a little bit of extra cooling factor for when you're in the hot southern heat, which we are down here. So long story short, this should be pretty simple. What we'll be doing is adding a switch to the side of the panel, and it's going to have a high and a low. There's really no good how-tos out here, especially on YouTube, on how to wire up these vented seats. Once you get the seat on the ground and flipped over, you will see a couple harnesses underneath here. Now, I have removed a lot of the protective shielding and wiring that was on here, so I removed the wiring here, I removed the tape here, I moved some tape here, and yeah, so what we need for this, there's basically two wires that we need to modify. And what that is actually the seats. This is the kind of central power line, if that's what you want to call it, going to the top. And this is the power line going to the bottom. And the wires we need to focus on are going to be this red wire and the ground, this black wire. The blue, I believe, is CAN bus. And the same is going to be here. You got your red wire on the bottom. The blue wire is next to it. And directly underneath, so this is in the third slot on the bottom here, we're going to need that ground wire as well. Now, I've actually seen a few people just cut the red wire and supply a switch 12 volt to it. While I think that is one way to do it, I don't know where those ground wires go, and I don't know what they're tied to, so I would rather just kind of use our own ground that's going through the chassis of the car. And so what we're doing is actually cutting the red wire, cutting that black wire. We won't be using the CAN bus because obviously we have none of the C7 technology on the car to operate that CAN bus, but we've got a little bit of a reducer, if that's what we want to call it, to work as our own version of a CAN bus. And so we'll provide 5 volts to the low switch, 12 volts on the high switch, and that will basically give us our 2-mode function on the seat fan. So we're basically going to be making our own little jumper harness, adapter harness to connect to our jumper harness that we got from Vetworks. And so what we did was I actually ordered some C6 pins, and we're going to be pulling our power and ground from the C6 harness. We're not going to have anything to do with the C7 harness because unfortunately there's just not enough documentation out there to tie in, to the C7 side. So I think what we'll do is we'll add a weather pack connector. That way we can remove the Vetworks harness, so we can remove our harness at the same time, and we'll tape it all together so that way it's in a nice little neat bundle. All right, so as you guys can see, we've already cut and stripped our wires. So, here and here. And what we'll do is we will actually use some heat shrink tubing and make sure that these other wires can't get, cross-circuited or anything, or so they don't ground out on anything. So we've got our pin. I've already used it. That's going to go into the C6 harness. I'll have a part number down below for that pin. Going into our fuse, there's a 40 amp fuse that came with that kit. Bought 5 of them, so 40 amp might be a little overkill, but that's all right. We're gonna go into our Metro Pack, weather pack connector, whatever you want to call that. So that way we can disconnect this harness with that harness. That weather pack will feed over to our button, so your middle is off, your low will be on the bottom, and high will be on the top. Now, guys, I have been told, and when I read the reviews on these are actually wired backwards. So if you want the low to be on, you actually are going to be wiring it to the top. So if the low position's on bottom, you're going to want to wire that to the top. If you want the on position, the high position, that'll be to the top, that'll be to the bottom, if that makes sense. So that power wire will come into the middle, and then your other 2 power outputs will come out. So your high will go directly to the red wire. The low will actually go through this little reducer. So if you guys can read this, this is a 12 volt to 5 volt reducer. So the low will come into the red. The yellow will then run back to the same connector. So we're going to have basically 2 wires into one, so we'll have to try to get a connector for that. And yeah, so, and then the ground will go ground to the weather pack to this line to the black wires for here and here. All right, you'll see that I drilled a hole right here in the side of the panel. So we're gonna kind of put the switch right about there. It was really one of the only spots that I had where you've got room to access the wiring behind it. You could try to put it here, but then you're running in, there's not much room back here, and plus the foam's right there. This gives you plenty of access to get your 3 prongs and pins up into this switch. Ran the power wire down through here. It's connected to the weather pack connector, goes to our fuse, goes to our pins. So now we will basically have power going to our switch, and now we're gonna use the switch to control high, low, or off. Right now it's obviously an off, so when we want to put it in low, you know, we'd select that. We want so if it's up, we want to use the pin on the bottom, and we'll run that to the little converter box, and we'll run that power wire to both the upper and lower seat fan controls. All right, guys, you can see we have the switch installed. I ended up using a unibit, and just used it till I got to the depth I needed. I pushed the switch in all the way, and we should be good there. You're gonna have your main power coming off of the pins and the fuse, so that's coming here. Here's a little Metro Pack connector, so this is gonna be your main power. That'll be going to the middle prong, and then your 2 outer prongs will be the low and high. And here's gonna be the low, because this is the one that has the little reducer box. The other end of the power, that's gonna be your high. Those I connected both together, and then you've got one line, you know, so I use the weather pack as the connector. Then on the other side, I use that as a connector to connect the top and bottom. So this little line on the bottom, that is actually going to be the back pad, so the back, and the longer line here is going to be the bottom, the seat bottom. So our power is all done. So we basically just need to plug this harness into the switch, this harness into the switch, and our power source will come from the pin from GM. All right, guys, we are finally finished. I haven't put the pins in yet because I still want to test it before we stick the pins in the Corvette Works connector here. So we got our power and our ground. We got our ground. We haven't really covered that. So our black wires are ground. It's going through this first weather pack connector. The ground goes through this little reducer box into this weather pack connector, and then your 2 grounds, one goes off to the lower pad, one goes off down to the upper pad. All right, so this is gonna be kind of hard to film, but remember our 40 amp is gonna be the ground. We're gonna apply power. We got nothing, it's in the off switch. Let's put it on high. So let's apply our ground. All right, so that's high. Now let's put it on low. There you go. I think we're good. All right, guys, I was able to confirm that both the top and the bottom fans are both working. They're both working on 5 volt, they're both working on 12 volt. And we officially have a functional air conditioner, and all we need to do, there's no modifying the car at all. All we need to do, all we're gonna have to do is plug the seat harness in. We'll run these 2 pins into that seat harness, and we're good to go. And if we have to remove the seat harness, all we'll have to do is disconnect the C6 body plug, the C7 little jumper harness right there. Then we also have that weather pack, like I said, and we can disconnect that too. So we're pretty much set on putting this in the car with functional AC. Obviously, we're still kind of waiting on the car to get here, but I still have to do the driver's side seat. But now that I know how to do this and we don't need to film it, we should knock that one out a lot quicker. But what I'm going to do next is actually kind of finalize all the wiring, put some zip ties where we need to, and tape up you know, pretty much anything, try to get things out of the way, because the seat tracks are there and you really don't want any of this wire harness get run over by any of the motors or anything like that. So we'll finish that up, but we'll do that off screen. So that's actually it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, we did get the seat fully functional, and like I said, I do have to do some finalization off screen, basically tuck the wires, tape stuff, zip ties, you know, all that good stuff. And whenever we get the car back, we'll be able to put the seat back in the car. So if you guys want to see that video, I think we might film another video. We'll be like final seat install, something like that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. So I actually will drop you guys some links down below for all the parts that we use, because I think I got everything off Amazon. The wiring, the pins, the weather pack connectors I think I bought a while back. Solder gun, drills. We'll have links to everything down below. The only thing we may not be able to include is the pins for the C6 harness. I actually will include a part number if I can't find that, and we'll go from there. If you guys also want to help support the channel, check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.